Okay, so welcome to another Feature Fridays, and today we've got a new guest, Benoit. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Benoit Serratrice. I'm based in Singapore. I've been for VMware for quite some time, nine years now. I've been working for them in multiple regions, starting in France, then moved to the US, and now Singapore. Most of my career at VMware have been professional services, and more recently I transitioned to VCPP. And I've always been passionate with automation, API. I did a lot of work on Orchestrator. So yeah, that's why I'm here today to tell you a bit more on what you can do on the cloud provider platform with APIs.
Excellent, thank you, Benoit. And my name, for those who don't know me, is Guy Bartram. I'm the product marketing manager for the Cloud Director suite of products. And we get a lot of questions around automation. Obviously, key to service providers driving business at volume is obviously automating all of their operational processes and customer onboarding and service activation and stuff like that. So really pleased to have you on today, Benoit. Your experience and knowledge of the APIs that are available is well known within the community. So really appreciate having you here today to talk us through the cloud provider API. So let's start with it then. I think you've got some slides to share, right?
Yes, let's
Okay, I
share
see 'em.
them.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I think today, so API across the cloud provider platform, it's a big topic. We have many
Mm,
products, but the main one is definitely Cloud Director. So that's why we'll be focusing on this one for today. So with Cloud Director, as you know, it's been 10 years then we have Cloud
yeah.
Director. So there has been many technology, many iteration on the product.
Yeah.
And I will say due to that, we have a few key APIs that are still there. So we we have this what we now it's called the legacy API, but it's still around and still very lively. It's if you go to VCD and you type /API, it's what you get. It's this legacy API. So I'll come back a bit later on what you have in each API.
Okay.
Uh, uh, Beside that, you have the network API, which is something that has been developed just for NSXV at one point, where we were trying to transition to another model. And finally, we have what is well known as the Open API or the Cloud API. It's the API going forward for Cloud Director. So all the new feature and everything, we try to put that on this Open API. Eventually, the two remaining API will go away and everything will be in Open API. But for now, we have to deal with these three, I will say, base API when we interact with BCD.
Okay, so not an ideal world at the moment, but a world that is evolving and evolving to a simpler model with one API to be in charge of NSX and Cloud Director operations.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
definitely. So
And
if
just out of
you,
in, sorry, just
yeah,
out of interest, where does the NSXT stuff sit today? Is that more
so
in the Cloud API?
yeah, NSXT sits mostly on Open API. Yes.
Okay, cool.
So if we look at quickly the feature, if you are thinking, oh, I need to do something on a VM, where should I look at? So for everything that has been in VCD from the very beginning, it's still very much in the legacy API. So all the core concept, organization, provider VDC, org VDC, VM templates, all these core concepts, they are still there in the legacy API. The network API, as I say, it's really just NSXV, so
Mm.
it should not really be useful going forward as we are transitioning to NSXT. And the Open API, it's the rest, and going forward, it's going to be yeah the only API that we are going to have.
And how do cloud providers who are developing today know what is going to be deprecated from legacy API and suddenly appear in Open API? Is there a specification they can go and find on what's in each version?
Yes, so that's a good point. So if we have a look at the documentation, so you can find all this API documentation on code.vmware.com. If you click on API, you can easily find the Cloud Director API. And what you find here is basically the legacy API, what you see here when you click on the link.
Okay.
Then if you click on this documentation here, you have the other API that are referenced. So if you are looking at the networking API, it's this NSX programming guide here. And the brand new cloud API, it's what you will find here. So
Okay.
if we look at this API, it's a big file, so it takes a bit to
Hmm.
load. Is that each of the call, there will be a little tag here to tell you in which version it has been added and also in which version it has been deprecated.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's a good way to get an idea if what you are doing today should change or not. Is looking at this little tag and find out, yeah, if it's still supported or if it's going to change. And if it's going to change, so I'm not sure I have one to show straight away, but if there is some deprecation, we can look at the let's search for the provider PVDC. Yes. So if we look at the PVDC here, no, it's not the right one. So we usually when something is deprecated, you will have a little comment telling you if it has been replaced by another API call.
Ah,
So
okay. Yeah.
I'll probably, oh yeah. So you see, okay. Okay, so here we can see that in version 35, which is VCD 10.2, it has been deprecated and it has been replaced by the 2.0 version,
Got it.
which
Okay. And
is
how far
right
do we make?
below.
Sorry, how far do we maintain backward compatibility in the versions?
So you usually the version. So you can. I'll show you a bit later, but you can see that when you list all the version, usually it's three version, 3 to 4 version, if I'm not mistaken, that are supported.
Okay.
So 3 version back.
Yeah. Okay. Great. That's good to know.
Okay, so you can find the API here on the web by looking directly at code.vmware.com, but you can also find that on VCD. So if you go to VCD, you have few options. If you are already logged in, you can just go to the API Explorer, and what you get here is actually the Cloud API. Okay, so it
Nice.
will
Yeah.
show you the Cloud API a bit different way than the one that you will find online here. So this is more looking like a Java doc, I will say, where
Yeah.
this one is like usually developer are used to Swagger and the Swagger UI. So the big difference, I will say, is that the way it has been integrated in VCD is that you can run calls directly from within the Swagger UI.
Excellent. And see what you get back. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you can just try out things here, get the result, and then if you want to push things, you can just do it. Get the body and maybe do a put to change the branding or something like that. Very easily, just to test things.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, that makes things a lot easier.
And the documentation that we've seen just before, you can also find it in the /docs. It's going to be the same thing. So while we are talking about docs, I wanted to highlight the fact that this cloud API, it's really the model that we are going to use going further. And this cloud API is implemented the Open API standard. That's why it's working with Swagger. And this Open API standard is actually extensible. So we did extended the model to support specific vCloud feature in it. So if you open this Cloud API JSON, so it's what I did in here, it's just a JSON file. And what's interesting is, so it's a usual format, but if you look for the XVCloud tag, you can actually find all the info that we were talking before. So you can find that this call has been added in the version 30. You can find if a call is, for example, related to compatible with multi-site. And you can find what we were talking before, the deprecation. So you can see that this call has been deprecated in version 34, and the alternative is this one. So it's just a programmatic way that you can find that. You will see that here in the doc with this little nice bubble. But if you want to like make a difference between two versions, you can just look at the JSON and yeah, write some code to extract the difference. So, and going forward, we are going really to leverage this format to add more and more, and then be able to generate code out of this specification. That's really the contract for the BCD API going forward.
Nice. I didn't actually think about the multi-site factor. So then you've got API calls that you would like normally run against a dedicated VCD, but in this case you can run them against the VCD, and it will actually make a change on another VCD. Is that the case? An associated VCD?
Yeah. So what it means for the multi-site is that basically it's something that will be available in your multiple VCD environment, and that you will be able to see across multiple VCD. If it's not there, it means that if you do your call, what you get is related to this VCD environment.
Yeah, so it's a nice way of optimizing, I guess, the ingress for your API calls and making it one point that you only have to go to potentially, rather than
Yeah,
running
I
them all
think
locally.
I think it's more about knowing if this call is going to run locally, and will return only things that are local. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And
Okay.
another thing interesting to point out is if you look at this, actually not constraint, but property annotation, that's going to tell you if you look at an object like so what is this object here? It's a VDC. So it will tell you, okay, so this property is non-searchable, non-sortable. This property is read-only, things like that. So it will also give you more insight of what you can do with the object and if you can search it or not. So that's really the Bible for the API. And it's not
And
necessarily exposed in the documentation you find online.
yeah, sorry, just to make sure I understand it. So the non-searchable means it's not something that's going to pop up in the new global search feature, or is this something that's more API related?
I will say it's more API related. We'll come back to that in a minute. Is that
Okay,
each object you can, when you are looking for, let's say an edge gateway, you can filter by edge gateway name, for example.
I
So
see.
if it's written non-searchable, it means that you cannot filter on these specific attributes.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so let's come back to the presentation then.
Okay.
So now I wanted to touch base about the key thing about API, which is always different between API, is authentication. So there has been an authentication method that has been there forever, which is this /API/sessions, which is coming from the old API. And now it should be considered as deprecated. And we have this new way of doing it, which is coming from the Cloud API. So fundamentally, it's the same thing, because what you do is you do a post request with a basic authentication header, and you retrieve a token. But what's very interesting with the Open API is that you have actually two URL for the one for the provider and one for the tenant. So if you want to improve security, what you can do is you can, if you use a web application firewall, you can actually forbid, you can make sure that no one from outside can access the provider authorization URL. So only your admin from inside the provider can access and can log in. And if you don't have the login, then you cannot do anything as a provider.
Yeah,
so that's
sure.
just a good way to secure that. And as of today, by default, Legacy API and Open API are enabled. So if you want to go the secure route, you can actually disable the old way to log into VCD.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, good advice.
Yeah. So yeah, let me just show you quickly then this authentication. So if we go here to Postman, which is, I think, a well-known tool to run REST requests. So what we do a post request on our VCD, and then this Cloud API 1.0 session and provider, because we are going to authenticate against the provider. So I'm passing a basic authentication. So it's the same format as before, admin at the tenant name, because we are targeting the provider tenant. It's going to be system. And the password, I'm in my lab, so that's the usual VMware One Bank password.
Just out of interest,
Yep.
I'm not sure, this may be a really stupid question, but if you're using uplifted authentication, such as a, 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 a- what's the word I'm looking for? Where you're sent somewhere else to do a multi-factor authentication, how does that work? Or does that
So,
even work via the API?
so
I doubt it does, right?
yeah, it's going to be, I will say, a bit more difficult. So we have something in the pipe to be able to, allow anyone to create API token, like it's very common with other APIs. So that's coming. It's not yet there. The workaround that I will say, if you want I'm doing that because in our internal cloud, One Cloud, we have an external IDP. So what you can do is you can just log in through your normal login way, and then you can just go to your browser and open the developer part. And if you look at any of the call that is made, you can find the token right here. So it's not going to fly if you want to do like a full end-to-end automated process. But if it's just a one-time thing, I think it's suitable. Now, if you want to integrate that with a fully automated process, you will have to create local user on VCD. So if you are org administrator, you might be able to do that, create some local user, like one user called automation that you will use for all your automation. And then by this way, you can easily track that also in the logs and for audit purposes.
Yeah.
So that will be the way for now, create a local user just for the purpose of automation.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I got it.
So now, before just running this authentication call, let me just show you a mistake that I do often. Is that usually when you write a REST call, you just put this accept header with application JSON, and when you do that with VCD, you get this error method not allowed. So you are like, oh, it's weird, post is not allowed. And then what is it? It's just because you forgot this version number here. So just a tips here. If you see method not allowed, don't search any further. Look at the accept header. And then when you run,
Another
yep,
good tip. Thank you.
yeah. And when you run that, you have to look at the header here, and you will find your token here.
Yeah. And you could use this for put jobs from that point onwards, right? For just for simple things.
Yes. So yeah, in Postman, it's, I will say, integrated, so you can just choose BR token, copy it here, and then you can run maybe a get on API slash orgs, I think. No, it's not. Oh, yeah. So because I'm switching API, that's a good example. That's also the annoying thing with the two API is the accept header is a bit different. So when you do cloud API, it's this application slash JSON. When it's the legacy API, so you have the choice between JSON and XML, but in both cases, it looks like that with star plus JSON. And then here you are. You get the list of your org. So I have eCorp org, PyPiper, and so on. So that's yeah, just the way to get started. And now that's the good thing, because this authentication will work across all the API. Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
So since we are talking about Cloud API, I also wanted to highlight the fact that you were mentioning before this searchable property and non-searchable property. So if you were familiar with the legacy API, to search object, you will use what we call the query service. Which is a specific URL where you will say, okay, I'm looking for this type of object and with this constraint, and it will return the list of all the objects. In the Cloud API, we don't have this query service. We don't do it the same way. It's not a specific URL where you will search for things. It's going to happen on each of the different calls. So for example, if I take a look at the audit trail. So the audit trail allow you to see like all the events that happened in the past to yeah, just track what's happening. So if I just run that, oops,
Yeah,
again,
you're going to change that back.
I'm switching from legacy to new. So here I'm going to get, yeah, 67 events. So it's a brand new deployment, so that's why I don't have much things. But let's say if I want to filter that. So here you can see I have a bit of everything. I have the cell bootstrapping. I have, yeah, some cell related thing. What else? Yeah, it's mostly thing related to the cell booting at the beginning of the log. But let's say I want to see what's happening. I want to just check all the login. So I can actually filter that using this filter parameter here. So it's going to leverage, I will say, a query, not really language, but syntax called fecal. And I can search by event type. So here, as you can see, I have this event type, which is this com.vmware.thing. And here I can just say, okay, I want my event type equal login. So I'm not really sure about the syntax. So what I can do is just put star, which is a wildcard, and it will just return everything with login in it. And now I'm down to, actually more. than that. So I can see all my login. I can see if it was a successful login. So user admin login, user admin login. Yeah, I logged a lot as admin.
And how do you
Um,
know if these are constraints? Would you not get anything back if they're non-searchable?
so yeah, if it's non-searchable, let's say, I think I know by, I think task ID is non-searchable. So I can just look at the JSON like I showed you before, or I can just try that, and usually I will get a nice error saying, oh, filtering is
First,
not
not allowed.
allowed.
Yeah, got it.
So usually the error when you try to filter are fairly understandable. So you can just run it, try it, and you'll get something understandable. Yes.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Anything else on this? I will say base API that you get in VCD.
Um, no, I mean, so doing individual kind of jobs and functions seems to be fairly kind of uh, well, not simple, but it seems to be fairly easy to do in terms of to find the item you're looking for and then to go and set it. Using the Swagger API is going to make things a lot easier. The Swagger specification, sorry. Um, what about if you want to run multiple jobs and the interdependencies between them, understanding how that would work? So you want to configure an org and then put some parameters around the org, configure some users for the org, that type of thing.
Yeah, so that's really down to the type of call that you will be making, and many of these creation calls, so this post and put, what you get as a return is a task, so a VCD task that's going to actually appear in the UI. So then it's asynchronous, so you can just take this task ID and request the API, the task API, to see what's the status of the task, and then synchronize all your different action by looking at this task status.
Okay, so you're going to poll for completion of the task ID. Got
Yes,
it.
yes,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
And on top of that, so I haven't looked a lot about it, but we have this new MQTT
Hmm.
broker that is available that
Yep.
will allow you to subscribe to different channel and different events. So that's I think in the future that might be probably the preferred way is probably to send the call and look on the MQTT WebSocket and see what's coming to know when the task is finished.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
moving from
Polling's pretty.
polling to pushing. Yep.
Yeah. Polling's pretty inefficient. Listening is much better.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. No, nothing else from me on that. That's great.
Okay, so we've seen this, I will say, 3 block of API, but we have actually a bit more because VCD is a fairly extensible product. So on top of these 3 main API, I will say anyone can add more API on top of this one. So the good thing is in terms of authentication, it's integrated. So you'll use the same authorization for all these different API. And I wanted to mention a few of them, but yeah, something to really understand is that anyone, any software provider can just create their own API and plug that on top of VCD. So you have a single entry point to control VCD stuff, but also third-party thing.
What? So, just looking at the naming there, we've got sort of API extensibilities
So
API,
So yeah,
and
this is the API extensibility is like the framework. And then on
yeah.
top of that, VMware provides some out-of-the-box extensibility that you can install. So we have App Launchpad, we have Container Service Extension.
Hmm.
And also I wanted to point these define entities, which is, it's part of the Cloud API. But these defined entities, it's something that allow you to also extend the product. So behind these defined entities, it's not something you know in advance. It's going to depend on what you actually installed and configured in your VCD. So, and it's a way for a software provider to store information in vCloud Director. So if you want to integrate with vCloud Director and you need to store data in vCloud Director, you can create defined entities and store information in these defined entities.
Okay, so if perhaps you wanted to store, I don't know, tickets associated with a VM, you could use a defined entity to store ticket IDs associated to that VM, for example.
Yes, yes,
Right.
you could define a defined entity called ticket with a property which is ticket ID and another property which is number and so on,
Okay.
and store that in VCD and retrieve that through the Cloud API.
So how's that differing then to sort of the other approach where you'd use things like vCenter, metadata for, tagging for billing, where you'd put additional information associated with the object, which it could then be searched for metering and billing purposes.
Yes, so metadata, it's something that you are going to put on a specific VCD already existing object. And it's a key
Ah, I see.
value pair. So it's
Yeah.
fairly, I will say it's a key value pair. So that's all what you get, and it
Hmm.
needs to be related to something that is already existing in VCD. Here
Okay.
with the defined entity, it's a brand new thing that you create, and you can have you define the entity and then you can create multiple one and then use that in a UI or somewhere else.
I see. I see. Yeah. So it's slightly more, it's probably not the right thing then to use for that kind of metering where a VM is either a part of a service or it isn't, or part of some sort of service criteria. Whereas here you could perhaps create your entire own service with a whole load of variables associated with it, which you could then list if you wanted to in the UI.
Yes, yes. So I think that's something that was missing in the past because this API extensibility was there for a long time. But there was always the need to have like a middle server with a little database to store few information, like an inventory or something. Now it's not really required anymore. You can do everything with defined entities.
And how did you, if you were going through upgrade cycles of VCD, how do you maintain your defined entities between different versions of VCD when the API gets upgraded?
So it's going. So the defined entities, it's there in the API. So I don't think we expect any deprecation soon. And it's something that is going to be, I will say, configured in database. So when you upgrade VCD, you keep all the data. So it's going
Okay,
to
that's what
stay
I meant.
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
so that's fine. So you don't actually have to kind of export and reload them afterwards or anything like that.
No, no,
Okay.
definitely not.
Okay, and so then the API extensibility that you got for CSE, App Launchpad, object storage, these are things where, we, VMware, have created this extensibility capability, and then we're using this to provide our own plugin capabilities on
Yes,
top.
yes.
But there's no reason why someone else can't use that API extensibility to create their own plugin, like
Exactly. Yeah.
data protection, for example. They have a plugin. I think Veeam
Yes.
has a plugin coming, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely. These are really just example, but you can create more. And I think even us going forward, maybe some feature will create that as an API extensibility thing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay, and that's I'm mentioning that because obviously you won't find in the in the public documentation, you won't find anything here about App Launchpad or CSE because it's something that has been built as an extensibility. So it's not there in the base API.
Yeah.
But in many cases, let's say App Launchpad, we publish that as well. So you'll find an API Explorer, same thing, App Launchpad, and you can look at the different code you can do. And
Okay.
the only way to differentiate that, it's after when you register your extension, you just say everything that is /ALP, it's going to be App Launchpad.
Yeah, got it.
And the way you can know about it, let me just duplicate that. The way you can know about it is like if you can actually list the different API filter that has been configured. So if we do, API filter, let's just change that to my XML. And here I have App Launchpad installed in this VCD. So what I can see is that I have an API filter record
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
has been actually recorded for this pattern. So you record the pattern, you tell to VCD, and that's the way you can see if things has been installed. Just doing this query will let you know if there are extensions that have been installed. Yes.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
And and then you can really just play with it. So if you were mentioning ALP here, so the syntax was Vim1, and then we've seen in the doc that there is some catalogs. So if I just run that, and I need to. So again, that might be confusing, is that each API has the choice to use the either the old way or the new way. So you'll have to figure that out, and then you get the list of items. So the catalog that I configured in App Launchpad.
Brilliant. Excellent. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. So I guess the next phase to understanding more about how to use the API is the SDK world.
Yeah, right before that, I just wanted to mention that the last of the API
Oh,
that needs to
okay.
be different is the Appliance API. So this API is really just about managing your appliance. So you'll get everything you need to like monitor the services that are running on the appliance, look at the storage, things like that. Um, just something to point out is because we are authenticating against the appliance itself, not really the VCD service. It will work even if VCD is down, it's going to work. And obviously the authentication, it's not the same, and the port is not the same. So that's why we are on port 5480, which is the VAMI port. And if you want to log in, it's a bit easier. You don't even need a token. You can just do basic authentication with root. And if we want to, what can we do? I think we can have a look at the services. So API services. Let's make sure we have the right headers. And here you can see the VMware service running, Postgres, and yeah, I don't have a cluster, so the other service are dead. But that's really the idea about this Appliance API. If you are looking for a way to monitor your appliance, you can use this API.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. So that would be, I guess, useful to do sort of polling of that API on a defined period just to get the status of all the appliances, make sure the
Yes,
service is up.
polling of the API. Also, if you are planning to automate the whole configuration of VCD, that's a way to configure, the secondary node, primary node, things like that. To even failover, you can do that as well through this API.
Got it. Okay, cool. I was wondering what that extra gap was at the end there. I was thinking, is there another API? Yes, there is. Okay.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Plenty of APIs.
So yeah, and then you mentioned SDK. So REST API, it's nice. You can play with Postman because we have for most of them we have open API specification. You can also generate your own code out of that. When you have an open API specification, you have generator that's allow you to generate the whole SDK. So that's something you can do yourself. But when
Mm.
it comes to this legacy API, network API, we add some SDK that has been published. Um, we have a Python. So very early on, it was mostly a Java SDK and a .NET SDK to support the Power CLI module. And more recently, we added a Python SDK and a Golang SDK. So the Python SDK is to support specific tool, and the Golang SDK is to support the Terraform provider. So
Okay.
these SDK are usually, so I try to with the size of the rectangle, it basically show you what it's really covering. So as you can see, most of them are really covering well the legacy API, but not so much when it comes to the open API.
Mm.
But the plan really in the future is to, because we are aligning on this open API specification, is to be able to align with each VCD release and release a brand new SDK that covers all the feature each time. So that's the target that engineering is trying to to put in place.
Okay, and you said the Golang is more to do with Terraform, so it's covering a pretty much a large chunk of the open API. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so on top of this SDK, so you can either take it and then write your own code, or we also have tools that are available and that are actually leveraging this SDK. So most of them has been built to be used by one of these tools. Um, so the first one, Power CLI and .NET, as of now, there is no really plan to support it going forward. So if you think it's useful, just speak up, and we'll we'll try to see how engineering can make that happen. But yeah, definitely that's something that is most probably going away. For the rest, it's a bit outdated for the VRO plugin, but it's still working very well. And being VRO guy, I'm still using it a lot.
hmm hmm
And it relies on this Java SDK that has been there for a long time. And the other more, I will say, recent tool, so Terraform, rely on this Golang SDK, and it's kind of developed at the same time.
hmm Yeah.
And the Python SDK is also key because it's used by VCD CLI. It's also used by CSE in the backend, and we also have an Ansible module. So I will say, long story short, if you want to play with the API, go ahead. But if you really just want to do a bit of automation, you have some tools that are ready to go, and you don't have to play with all this authentication thing, token, and finding out what's happening. Just use the tool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see. Yeah, it's interesting about the Power CLI module. I mean, in my view, that tends to be more something that it's not necessarily developer orientated, it's more operations orientated who have like a lot of skills to whip up quick Power CLI modules to do various operational tasks. But if you're looking at, development to develop some new extensibility module or to really get into what the product can actually do and develop an application around it, then yeah, Python and Java and Golang well, Golang offers you with Terraform quite a lot out of the box, right? I mean, that's
Yep.
pretty simple stuff, Terraform Provider API.
Yes.
Cool, brilliant. Well, this is plenty of kind of selection. It's nice to see and get some definition from you, Benoit, on the what is really available now, where I guess people should focus on, and what is like the SDK coverage. And this is a work in progress very much, right? I mean, we're building this new open API. We'll be moving some of the older stuff into that, deprecating some things, and developing new functionality as we bring in things like advanced load balancer, NSXT, and things like that are all going to be
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
evolving into this
Yes.
this open API. So really, I guess the best practice should be, and you know, the authentication mechanism was. Oh, and my video stops. Let me just stop and restart. The authentication mechanism advice was very useful, and to remove
Yeah.
the access to the provider API, very good. Yeah, appreciate that. Um, if it's available in the open API, then that's definitely the place that people should be using it.
Yes.
Um, Otherwise, it's got a chance of being deprecated in one of the older APIs. And really, I guess then the choice of whether you use, I mean, .NET probably not a great idea, but if you use Java, Golang, or Python, really depends on what you're trying to do, what you're comfortable with, and what you know,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, no, I think when you do automation, you start with what you are comfortable with. So
Yeah,
for me, I'm so used to VRO that I will usually go back to VRO just for that. But
excellent.
recently, I learned, yeah, I spent quite some time in Python. So now I'm like sometime a bit of VRO, sometime a bit of Python. So I think, yeah, it's really just about what you are comfortable with. But it's important to understand what's happening in the backend on the API side,
Yeah,
so you can do the right choice when you develop what you want to automate. And maybe one last trick that I use a lot. I think it's well known, but it's always good to remind that is if you go to the developer mode of a browser like Chrome,
hmm
anything you do in VCD UI, you're going to see the call that is happening in the backend. So if you're not sure which API to use, you can always just refer to that. I don't know if I want to, yeah, look at this organization. And then if you are on Chrome, you can just copy that as a curl, for example, and then you can go to Postman and you can directly import that. Oops, the raw text. You can import that, and then you can start, yeah, changing the call, changing the parameters. But that's just a neat trick when you play with API. Just
yeah,
do what the UI is already doing, because in the case of VCD, the UI is definitely using the API all the time. So it's not like some product they will have like a special API just for the UI, which is a private one. No, for VCD, it's really the public API that is used by the UI. So it's very easy to grab calls from the UI and reuse them.
yeah. Oh, what a different world it is now. I remember this used to be a lot harder, but actually getting visibility on what's
Yeah,
being
yeah,
called is fantastic. Yeah, and it's a
yes, yeah.
quick way to get started. Benoit, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate the overview you've given, and it's been really insightful for me. I've learned a lot, so hopefully our viewers have as well. Thank you again.
Thank you.